Remember Trump's campaign trail fantasy? Lower costs, booming growth, economic salvation from day one? Fast forward 100 days, and let's be honest, it's more fizzle than fireworks. And his latest excuse? Brace yourself. Maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30, and maybe the 2 will cost a couple of bucks more. Are you kidding me? That's not economic policy. That's a punchline. 2 overpriced dolls instead of 30. Who exactly is that supposed to comfort? Working families or Wall Street elites? These tariff trade wars weren't strategy. They were self-inflicted wounds. From toy shelves to grocery stores, prices are climbing. And Trump's answer is fewer toys and more pain. Senator Michael Bennet discusses Trump's tariff woes, the effects on small business, and how children will be affected this Christmas.
So where is the power that Democrats have to push back on the president on this topic?
I think that power is actually coming from small businesses all over our country that are banging on their members of the Senate, Democrats and Republicans, to say we've got to stop this irrational tariff war. There are a lot of us who think that a targeted, strategic approach with respect to China makes a lot of sense, but taking on the entire world at once has meant that this has been a tariff war actually among our, against our allies, but also against American businesses. And I'm hearing from people that I'm sure half the people that I've heard from about this at home are Republicans who think that Donald Trump has actually been the worst president that small business and their workers have ever had, because this is so self-inflicted. It's like Donald Trump always talked about the China flu. This is a tariff flu that's been created by one American. That's Donald Trump. And he is destroying our supply chains as a result. And I think we've got to push back, and we will.
A 0.3% economic contraction. That's a shrink in the economy, an actual shrink for the first time in years. And families, millions of them are feeling it. People walking into grocery stores, just trying to get basic stuff like eggs, only to see prices climbing higher and higher. Honestly, it's all feeling kind of relentless. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, you'll love this. He's out here saying access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream. Not the essence. Really, Scott? Well, tell that to the mom working 2 jobs who's counting every penny to make ends meet and still coming up short. And it's not just empty rhetoric. I mean, let's talk South Carolina for a second. Factory workers earning $11 to $17 an hour. 11? The living wage there is $22 an hour, minimum, just to survive. No vacations, no emergencies, no nothing. Just survive. That's the American dream? Really? And we're seeing diminishing opportunities. It's like being stuck on a treadmill where no matter how hard you work, there's no mobility. Kids, grandkids, all locked into the same low-pay, grueling jobs. It's heartbreaking, right? Look, it's easy for billionaires in gilded offices, Bessent, Trump, and the gang to wax poetic about sacrifices. But to the average American, these aren't sacrifices. These are survival hurdles, and we are still holding them accountable for this reckless economic vision. So here's where things get even messier. The Trump administration has slapped a whopping 145% tariff on Chinese imports, and this decision is rippling through the very core of industries that Americans rely on, especially families with kids. I mean, think toys, holiday gifts, even basic household goods. Now get this. Factories in China produce close to 80% of the toys sold here in the U.S. and 90% of Christmas goods. But with these extreme tariffs driving costs through the roof, toy companies are scrambling. Some are halting their holiday inventory orders, others consulting bankruptcy lawyers. Yes, it's that bad. And who pays for this chaos? Families already struggling to get by. Now, Trump's statement, this one will stick. He says, well, maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls, and maybe the 2 will cost a couple bucks more. I'm sorry, what? 2 dolls instead of 30? Who's this guy talking to? Because I know a lot of parents juggling bills who would love to even afford that couple bucks more for 1 doll, let alone 2. Considering Trump likes to rename things, I guess Trump decided to rename How the Grinch Stole Christmas and call it How Trump Stole Christmas and the Economy. And it's not just economists waving the red flag. Industry leaders like the CEO of the Toy Association are outright warning us the supply chain is frozen. That means scarce options for gifts, higher prices for the ones that actually land on shelves, and a crushing strain on the wallets of everyday people. Families might be staring down a holiday season with empty stockings, crying kids, and tough choices. Honestly, this isn't just about dolls or toys. It's a microcosm of an economic misstep that's hitting American households where it hurts. A policy framework that fails to anticipate, or worse, seems indifferent to, the struggles of those it's supposedly meant to uplift. So, while the administration crafts headlines touting bold moves and resilience, the reality on the ground is slipping through the cracks. You know, hearing terms like transition period or patriotic spending always makes me pause. Because let me ask you this: transition to what? Sacrifice for whom? Historically, when leaders asked for sacrifice, like during World War II, it was about unity and collective effort. Roosevelt talked about giving up luxuries for the front line. Back then, it wasn't just platitudes. Policies ensured sacrifice was both fair and meaningful. But right now, it feels like the burden is falling squarely on the most vulnerable, not on those crafting these policies. Take J.D. Vance's idea of patriotic spending, for example. It's easy to talk about patriotism from podiums, but what does it mean for millions of consumers who can't even maintain their current standard of living? Consumer confidence is plummeting. Recession signals flashing red. And yet, we're being told to embrace higher prices as a patriotic duty. But let's go beyond the rhetoric. As a cardiologist, I meet people daily who are battling financial stress alongside chronic heart conditions. Imagine wearing the weight of rising grocery bills, trying to stretch that last paycheck over rent and medications. And before you critics say that physicians receive kickbacks for prescribing certain medications, please allow me to bring a little-known statue to light, the anti-kickback statute. This statute makes it illegal for physicians to receive any benefits for prescribing certain medications. The culprit for the high cost of medicines is the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the biggest lobbyists in Washington, D.C. They are the reason your elected politicians are allowing things like heart failure medications and insulin to cost over $1,000 per month. The pharmaceutical industry is a $1 trillion per year industry. Meanwhile, families are choosing between putting food on the table, buying needed medicines, and buying seasonal clothing for growing kids right here in the wealthiest nation on earth. To call this a transition period feels tone deaf. I mean, really, painfully out of touch. And what's worse is that this sacrifice isn't building anything. We're not transitioning to a brighter, more equitable future like post-war periods of economic revival. Instead, we're stuck watching the American dream get redefined into a vision of static mobility, where families work harder, pay more, and still see no path forward. Look around, and you'll see the toll it's already taking on the mental and physical health of our communities. So I have to ask, what's the game plan here? The people, the real people, not policymakers, not billionaires, are the ones carrying this transition. What's their payoff? Where's their sense of hope or stability in this so-called vision for the future? Because until those questions get answers, let's be honest, this isn't sacrifice. It's struggle, unnecessary and preventable struggle. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of The Real 411. Thank you so much for joining me. Honestly, your time, your insights, and your support mean everything, truly. If today's discussion resonated with you, or dare I say, even fired you up a bit, well, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment, share your thoughts on social, and let's keep this momentum going. Before we close, though, let me leave you with this. Every choice in this economy, every policy decision, every promise, it all trickles down to real people's lives. And we, as active participants, whether as voters, advocates, or just informed citizens, have power, Never underestimate that. So, if you believe in the pursuit of truth, in peeling back the layers of the headlines, I encourage you to stay connected. Subscribe to The Real 411 on our platforms, sign up for our email updates, and maybe even consider a paid subscription on Substack or Spotify. It keeps independent media like this alive and kicking. All right, my friends, let's carry today's topics into the conversations we have with the people around us, because change doesn't happen in isolation. It starts with dialogue, with small steps, and with big dreams. So let's keep thinking critically, advocating fiercely, and staying bold. Until next time, stay informed, stay fearless, and above all, stay real. I'll catch you soon.